Chapter 750. Even when the Nether Flame army formed a large group, they were often crushed and had to flee in a sorry state. But Little Master could deal with it alone. People really can't compare with each other. Are Yu Yang, Xia Yi, and the others bid their farewells and leave. Mu Yang is just about to find Di Ming Ju to denounce him. However, his body was suddenly pressed down by a strong force. Mu Yang staggers and falls on the chair. Then, his hands were firmly pressed on both sides of the armrest. The man's silhouette shrouds her. Di Ming Ju's unique overbearing breath hits her in the face. Finally, the eyesores are gone. The man's voice is deep and husky, as if he's been suppressing his lust for a long time. Yang Yang, now, no one will disturb us anymore. The man's handsome face was right in front of her, his deep blue eyes filled with her reflection. Muyan's breathing is a little chaotic, and she seems to be able to hear her own rapid heartbeat. She swallowed her saliva and said, You want Xiaobao to advance to Xiantian consummate in half a year? Aren't you being too hasty? After all, he's still a 5-year-old kid. Di Ming Ju slightly narrows his eyes, leaning closer to her. Yang Yang, are you doubting Ben Jun's ability? The man's eyes were bottomless, but they were burning with a flickering flame. It was like a wild beast that had found its prey and would devour it at any time. Mu Yang was immediately terrified. How could that be? Jun Shongdaran is #1 in the world. I doubt that no one will doubt you. Oh. She bit down on her pink lips. It's too late. If you say something wrong, you'll be punished. Di Ming Ju grabs her and flips her over. He sits on the chair and presses Muyan into his arms. Like a wild beast that doesn't know when to stop, he frantically devours all the breath on her body. By the time Mu Yang is released, her whole body is already completely trapped in Di Ming Ju's embrace. Di Ming Ju holds her in his arms like he's holding a child, and gently kisses the corner of her slightly red lips. His eyes were still filled with lust. His voice is unbelievably hoarse. Yang Yang, after we arrive at Shozhen continent, let's get married, okay? Mu Yang's heart violently thumps, and she subconsciously tries to avoid his gaze. However, Di Ming Ju grabs her chin, forcing her to look him in the eye. Jun Muyan, do you still want to escape? Even now, you still refuse to face your own heart. Mu Yang's body unconsciously trembles. Her soul seemed to be deeply sucked in by those blue eyes, unable to break free. The man's voice was like a devil's temptation, making her sink little by little. Jun Muyan, don't deceive yourself anymore. You also like me. You already have me in your heart. Mu Yang tightens her hands that hang by her side, and slowly finds her voice. You really don't mind my past. She had always known that this man was superior. But he had never had a woman by his side. Ying Mai and Han Yi both said that before they met him, no woman could get within 3 feet of Jun Shong. No matter how one looked at him, he was a perfect man who could drive all the women in the world crazy. As for her, in both her previous and current lives, she had long since been riddled with holes. She did not betray her innocence. Was she really worthy of this man? Could she really return the same feelings to this man? Chapter 751. He gently pecks the girl's lips, extremely gentle, extremely lingering, pouring out all of his feelings. If you don't marry, Ben Jun will never marry. Yang Yang, do you have the heart to let me live out my life alone, in misery? Jun Yang is still cold and aloof, but it's tainted with a bit of a spoiled grievance. Muyan couldn't help but burst out laughing. Polar Domain's Di Jun's charm is unparalleled. There are as many women in the 3 realms who want to marry you as there are stars in the sky. Di Jun will live out his life alone, in misery? Who would believe that? But there are 3,000 waters of weakness. I only want to marry you. Di Ming Ju gently grabs her hand and presses it against his chest. Jun Muyan, if you still don't believe me, how about Ben Jun cut out my heart for you to see? The corner of Muyan's mouth twitches, and she can't help but clench her hand into a fist. She heavily punches his chest. Where did you learn to be so glib, to speak such honeyed word? Ying Mai actually says that their Jun Shong doesn't know what it means to coax a woman, and asks her to bear the consequences. The result is that, apart from the guy being a bit stubborn at the beginning, his honeyed words become more and more difficult to resist. Jun Shongdaran says, Ben Jun didn't read so many romantic words in vain. What's more, what he's saying is clearly the truth, but it's a pity that his Yang Yang doesn't believe it. Di Ming Ju. Muyan suddenly raises her voice, interrupting Jun Shong's attempt to explain. He slightly glances to the side, meeting the girl's clear eyes that are as dark as ink. At this moment, there's no longer any languid and seductive disguise on her face, and there's also no attempt to escape. There's only his shadow. Di Ming Ju is almost intoxicated in those rippling, soul-stirring peach blossom eyes. So much so that he actually didn't hear what was said at the beginning. I admit, I really do. I will consider what you said. I will give you the answer after I ascend to the Xiuzhen continent. Di Ming Ju abruptly comes back to himself, grabbing her waist and pulling her into his arms. You just said, you really do something to me? Muyan blushes. Good words don't say it twice. If you didn't hear it, then forget it. Di Ming Ju isn't willing to let it go, but he doesn't wait for her to continue questioning. Mu Yang suddenly pushes forward and presses his body against the chair. The girl half knelt on the edge of the chair in a very handsome posture, looking down at the man below her. Let's make this clear first, we have 3 rules. If you get involved with another woman while I'm giving my reply, then our agreement will be nullified. The smile in Di Ming Ju's eyes seems to overflow. He gently reaches out and presses Muyan into his arms. Can Ben Jun understand that Yang Yang is jealous? Muyan gives him a sideways glance. So what if I'm jealous? Jun Muyan's man can only belong to me. If I have to share him with others, then I'd rather not have him. Di Ming Ju really loves her flamboyant and confident look. He presses the back of her neck and kisses her again. How could I dare to disobey Madame's orders? He kisses her delicately, gently grinding, and softly whispers, Yang Yang, in this lifetime, there will be no one else in my heart besides you. Muyan stares blankly, then a smile slowly floats on her brows and the corners of her eyes. She reached out her hand and slowly grabbed his shirt, returning the kiss. The years are peaceful, and the feelings are profound. Muyan only reacts after a long time. Chapter 752. Mu Yang looked at Xia Ping'an's pulse diagnosis record in her hand and was a little worried. Di Ming Ju pulls her into his arms, and casually asks, What are you looking at? So engrossed. It's just a piece of paper, is it better looking than me? Mu Yang glares at him, then naturally nestles against his chest, saying, Xia Ping'an was injured when he was in his mother's womb, so that his meridians, qi, and even his internal organs are very fragile. This kind of fragility makes it impossible for him to bear the efficacy of elixirs, so he can only use drafts. Mu Yang found a prescription in the Encyclopedia of Supreme Drafts, and the applicable medical cases were similar to Xia Ping'an's. One of the medicinal ingredients required a spirit herb. It's not that Muyan doesn't have this kind of elixir, but once she uses it, Xia Ping'an's body simply can't bear it. Di Ming Ju glances at her, and casually picks up a pen to write down the name of a medicinal herb on a piece of paper. What if we replace this elixir with this? Muyan stares blankly at the draft that Di Ming Ju wrote. After a few breaths, she suddenly came to her senses. That's right. She could change the medicinal herbs according to the medicinal properties. Why should she be restricted by the prescription? This was really a case of being blinded by a single leaf. Replacing it with the herbs that Di Ming Ju had written down, even though the medicinal properties of the supreme draft had decreased, it had become extremely mild. Even with Xia Ping'an's physical condition, he could still bear it. Just as Muyan is about to praise Di Ming Ju, her eyes suddenly widen. If Xia Ping'an's medicine could be changed in this way, then what about the spirit molding pill? Why did the spirit molding pill explode? This was because there was a spirit herb that had a very high requirement for the purity of its spirit qi in the fusion process. But the Yanwu continent's aura is naturally heterogeneous, and Muyan uses ordinary flames to refine it. It's simply impossible to guarantee that the spiritual energy is completely pure. Therefore, every refinement attempt failed. What if she replaces this elixir with a draft with a similar attribute? Even if the medicinal effect was slightly weakened, her cloud-borne sea formation could greatly increase the medicinal effect, so it would definitely be able to make up for this weakening. The more Mu Yang thinks, the more excited she gets. He didn't want to waste even a moment. He stood up abruptly and was about to walk out. She hasn't even taken 2 steps when Ming-ju pulls her back. The man pulls her very close to him, his expression unkind. "Yang Yang, are you burning the bridge after crossing the river?" There's a joyful smile on Muyan's face, and she suddenly reaches out to hold his handsome face. Under Ming-ju's startled gaze, she lowers her head and gently kisses him on the lips. She says with a low laugh, "Baby, you're really amazing, I'll record this merit for you." Saying that, she abandons the petrified Ming-ju and hurriedly leaves. Ming-ju stiffly sits in place for a good while, only then does he reach out to touch his lips. The expression on his face seems to be an angry smile. This woman was getting more and more insatiable. They actually dared to take liberties with him. She even called him darling. This monarch is the dignified lord of Polar Domain, who allowed her to call me that, Ming-ju's ears redden, and it's a long time before he finally gets up and walks outside. His face is taut, but from time to time, he can't stop the corners of his mouth from curling up. After getting married, he must properly control this little woman, otherwise, wouldn't she overturn the heavens? If Ying Mai were to hear his lord's thoughts at this time, he would definitely roll his eyes. Even if Miss Jun wanted to overturn the heavens, it would still be because of you, master, spoiling her. Chapter 753. After Muyan refines the draft to repair his meridians and qi, Xia Ping'an's condition quickly improves. In just a short 7 days, he had already recovered his cultivation, and that very night, he broke through the bottleneck and advanced to the mystic stage. Xia Yi is simply crying tears of joy. He kowtows to Mu Yang again and again, and gives almost half of Xia An's Ghost City's assets to Mu Yang. Only then does he bid farewell and leave. Before leaving, Xia Ping'an really wanted to see his little brother, who was as pretty as a doll. However, Xiaobao stayed in the back mountain of Netherflame Valley and did not come out. Xia Ping'an retracted his gaze regretfully and could not help but look at Xia Yi. "Father, can I stay in Hellflame Valley? Why does Ping'an want to stay here? Fairy sister and little brother are both so beautiful and so powerful. I like them and want to see them all the time. Besides, I feel very comfortable and happy here." Even when he hadn't recovered from his illness, when he was weak and incompetent, no one here would laugh at him. Instead, everyone comforted him and made him happy. He really liked this place. Xia Yi smiled and rubbed Xia Ping'an's head. He said in a gentle voice, "Ping'an, if you want to stay here, you still have to work hard. Because this place only accepts experts. As for the little young master and Miss Jun, they will only leave stronger experts by their side." Xia Ping'an's eyes lit up. Ping'an will definitely work hard to become the strongest. He turned around and looked at the valley that was gradually shrouded in thick fog. He swore to himself. One day, he would become stronger and become a part of this place. 10 days later, Yu Yang held Xia Yi's letter and smiled at Haitang beside her. Xia Daran said that Ping'an is determined to join the ink camp, and has always been at the little master's side. Now he's desperately cultivating every day, and his cultivation is advancing by leaps and bounds. Haitang couldn't help but laugh. Everyone in the Netherflame army quite liked this somewhat silly but abnormally honest and steady little boy. But as she smiled, her smile faded. Who wouldn't want to stay by Miss and little Gong's side? But Haitang did not continue, but Yu Yang knew what she wanted to say. But what rights did they have to stay by the side of young Miss and little master? The young Miss's cultivation had already reached the consummate level of the Xiantian realm, and she had even successfully molded her spiritual root. As long as she was willing, with just a thought, she could temper her body and soul, trigger the lightning tribulation, and ascend to the cultivation land. As for the young master, the Empyrean emperor had said that he would be able to reach the peak of the Xiantian realm in half a year at most. At that time, the Miss and the little master will leave Yanwu continent. As for them, how they wanted to follow Miss and little master to roam the world. However, their cultivation was only at the heaven realm. Even if they worked hard to reach the innate realm, how many years would it take before they could refine their bodies and souls? This thought flashed through the minds of everyone in the Nether Flame army. There was reluctance, unwillingness, yearning, and expectation. However, no one dared to say it. No one dared to mention a single word. Because their lives were bestowed upon them by the young miss, and their current glory was bestowed upon them by the young miss. They hoped that Miss and Little Master could spread their wings and soar high, and would not be hindered by anyone or anything. Especially them. Yu Yang gently exhaled and forced a smile. In fact, we are already very lucky to be able to stay by Miss and Little Master's side for so long, Feng Haitang was about to reply. Chapter 754. Both of them turned their heads and saw the person standing at the door. They were stunned. Miss. That's right, the person standing outside is Muyan. However, it was different from her usual languid and calm demeanor. At this moment, she looked exhausted, and there were dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept for several days. Miss, your complexion. Feng Haitang said worriedly. But he was immediately interrupted by Mu Yang. She took out a storage ring and placed it on the table. Her voice was slightly hoarse as she said, "There are 200 spirit molding pills in here. Divide them into 4 portions. Choose 50 elites from each camp with higher cultivation and let them consume them. I want to see the effects." Spirit molding pill, what is that? Yu Yang angrily took out a porcelain bottle from her storage ring. Opening the porcelain bottle, there were about 10 pills inside. Mu Yang says faintly, after taking it, as long as one's cultivation reaches the pre-celestial level, they will be able to shape their spiritual roots, temper their body, and refine their soul. It's just that because you haven't reached the Xiantian full circle and haven't been tempered by the thunder tribulation, the attribute of your spiritual root isn't very good. Most of you have 3 spiritual roots. I'll think of a way to solve this problem for you when we get to the cultivation continent. Of course, if there is anyone in the Nether Flame army who is unwilling to ascend like this, I will not force them. Yu Yang's hands trembled and her legs went soft. She almost threw the porcelain bottle in her hand to the ground. Self-mold spirit root. Her tongue was stiff and her ears were buzzing. She felt like she was hearing some kind of illusion. Even Feng Haitang, who had always been a calm person, had her mouth wide open, unable to react for a long time. Miss, you really refined such a miraculous pill? Shaping the spirit root, that was shaping the spirit root. Furthermore, he could temper his body and soul and ascend to the cultivation continent without even experiencing the lightning tribulation. It must be known that there are many practitioners in the Yenwu continent who have persevered until they are over 100 years old, but are still unable to break through the bottleneck. They can only sigh as they gaze at the Xiuzhen continent, which is just out of reach. If the elders of the Tiandao sect had this spirit molding pill, why would they need to go crazy and raise a pill embryo? After a long while, Yu Yang said in a sharp voice, "Miss, do you know what you have given us? It's not just a mere elixir, but something that will completely change the structure of the Yenwu continent." Furthermore, the young miss had given him 200 pills in one go. 200 pills, and she said it was a trial? What did that mean? Could it be that Miss intends to move the entire Hellflame Valley to the cultivation continent? How could anyone do such a stupid and willful thing? If other people had this pill, who wouldn't hide it and not let others know about it even if they were beaten to death? But their young miss had taken it out so casually. Yu Yang's tears fell uncontrollably. She opened her mouth for a long time, but only repeated, "Miss, how can you be like this? How could this be?" Muyan is annoyed by her nagging, and snappily says, "If you don't like it, then the Tianji battalion can be divided equally among the other 3 battalions. No. Yu Yang immediately clenched the porcelain bottle in her hand and shouted, "Even if I die, I won't give it to them." Feng Haitang burst out laughing. Then, his eyes redden. He takes a step forward and kneels in front of Muyan. But this time, she doesn't kowtow. Instead, she hugs Muyan's waist and softly weeps. "Miss, why do you treat us so well?" Chapter 755. Miss, Yu Yang, will follow you for a lifetime, never marry, never have children. Yu Yang, will only love you, miss, for a lifetime. Mu Yang is at a loss for what to do with these two girls crying. She doesn't understand why they're crying like this after casually giving them some medicine. And crying is crying, can they not wipe their snot and tears on her? Refining medicine for 10 days without rest, she's very tired, she just wants to sleep, okay? Mu Yang sighs softly. Just as she is about to comfort these two crying women, she suddenly feels her body lighten. Feng Haitang and Yu Yang, who were holding her, have been directly thrown out. Mu Yang soars into the air and is carried by Mingju. He turns around and walks out. Although Feng Haitang and Yu Yang were thrown out, they aren't injured. After getting up and seeing Mingju carrying Mu Yang away with a dark face, they can't help but laugh. Son-in-law is jealous. Son-in-law is really too overbearing, hee. Even when a woman approaches the miss, he gets jealous. Who told our miss to be so outstanding? It's normal for son-in-law to be worried. The two joked for a while, then take the spirit molding pill to Yang Haotian and Bai Ichen. They want to share this great news with the rest of the Nether Flame army. They want to tell Yang Haotian, Bai Ichen, Guan Hu, Old Dao, tell them that the miss will not abandon them. The Nether Flame army can go to the Shozhen continent together. Mingju carries Mu Yang all the way back to the bedroom, his face dark the whole time. The momentum of his body makes the little maid tremble in fear, almost turning around and running away. Mu Yang holds his face and smiles. Who offended Jun Shongdaran again? Why is your face so ugly? While talking and laughing, she also kneads his face into various shapes. Mingju. His little wife is getting more and more presumptuous. What to do? Does he still want his Jun's dignity? Mingju ignores Mu Yang's question, still calmly carrying her into the bedroom and placing her on the bed. Mu Yang wants to speak, but Mingju presses her on the bed and says with a dark face, "Sleep." Mu Yang finds that Mingju is really angry. She grabs his hand and gently shakes it. "Don't be angry, I won't sleep for 10 days in a row and make you worry." Mingju's complexion turns even darker, he almost roars out, "There's still a future." No. No. Absolutely not. Muyin is just short of pointing to the heavens and swearing an oath. She takes the initiative to kiss Mingju's face several times, only then does Jun Shongdaran's temper settle down. Mingju snorts coldly. He bears it for a while, but in the end, he still couldn't help but say, "In the future, you're not allowed to get so close to them, you're not allowed to make a move on you." Them? Who? Muyin stares blankly for a moment, then she immediately realizes it and says in disbelief, "You're not talking about Yu Yang and Haitang, are you?" Mingju glares at her. Heavens! They are women. How can you be jealous of them? Mingju grits his teeth. No matter if it's a man or a woman, it's fine if these two women don't let go of his Muyin. He even said that they would never be separated, that he would never marry or have children, and that he would only love Miss. Did she think that he, Jun Muyin's husband, was fake? Mu Yang looks at Mingju's childish face in a fit of pique, and she can't help but laugh out loud, rolling on the bed as she laughs. Aya, her Jun Shong, how could he be so cute? Right at this moment, a commotion suddenly sounded from afar. Chapter 756. We will follow Miss and Little Master for a lifetime. As a result, Jun Shong's face darkens even more. Muyin grabs the man's wide palm, gently pasting it on her face, and slowly falls into dreamland. For the first time, her dream no longer has the bloody and dark past, only warmth and sweetness. For the first time, she is full of longing and expectation for the future, for that mysterious continent. There, will she stay with this man by her side, with complete sincerity, never to be separated? Past life, present life, the Shozhen continent and the bright future, for the first time, she is so close, so close. Shozhen continent's western regions, Yunguang sect. Jian Feng and Gong Chenxue kneel on the ground, their bodies tense. The atmosphere in the entire hall is somewhat solemn. Finally, an old man sitting at the head says in a somewhat high voice, "You said that you found an immortal spirit body in the Yanwu continent. Is this true?" "It's absolutely true." Jian Feng quickly says, "On that day, This disciple stayed in the Yenwu continent without permission. I knew that I had wronged the sect, and I didn't have the face-to-face master, so I didn't dare to come back. But this time, this disciple suddenly received the news of an immortal spirit body, and felt that I should report it to master no matter what, so I rushed back from the Yenwu continent. I ask master to punish this disciple for being unfilial. The old man doesn't get angry when he hears that, instead he says excitedly, "Quickly get up. Quickly get up. If the news you brought is true, Feng not only are you not guilty, you are also a great hero of our Yunguang sect." The elders and disciples of the Yunguang sect, standing on both sides, all show an excited expression. Their Yunguang sect, in the entire Xiuzhen continent, is a third-rate sect that can't be ranked. Even the cultivation of the sect leader, Wu Qishan, isn't much. But if he can obtain an immortal spirit body, then it's completely different. As long as he can refine the immortal spirit body into an elixir, Wu Qishan believes that he can definitely lead the Yunguang sect to a brighter future. Jian Feng stands up, and at the same time pulls Gong Qianxue behind him. "Master, this is Gong Qianxue, this disciple's." Wu Qishan contemptuously looks at Gong Qianxue, and casually says, "You found a furnace in the lower realm? This aptitude really isn't much, but forget it, it's just a furnace, master won't blame you." "Master, Qianxue isn't." Jian Feng wanted to explain. But Wu Qishan simply doesn't give him the chance. His eyes brighten as he says, "Everyone, go and get ready at once. We have to go to the Yenwu continent as soon as possible and seize the immortal physique, lest a long night brings many dreams." "Yes, sect leader." Everyone retreated from the hall, and when they passed by Jian Feng, they would show him a gratified and kind smile. However, he turned a blind eye to Gong Qianxue, who was behind her, and even despised her. Gong Qianxue's hands were tightly clenched into fists as she gritted her teeth. The anger and humiliation in her heart almost made her unable to restrain herself from twisting her face. But at this time, a young girl ran to Jian Feng's side, grabbed his hand, and said coquettishly, "Senior brother, why didn't you come back for so long? Why did you come back with such an unpresentable furnace?" Saying that, she looks at Gong Qianxue with disdain. This kind of trash, in the Xiuzhen continent, doesn't even have the qualifications to be a furnace. But it's also true, Yenwu continent is a broken place full of mortals. How could there be any decent people coming out? Chapter 757. Slap. A ruthless slap landed on Gong Qianxue's face, causing her cheek to swell up and blood to overflow from the corner of her mouth. But the young girl still hasn't vented her anger. She rushes over and ruthlessly kicks her stomach twice. "Who do you think you are? A lowly and broken furnace dares to talk to this lady like this? Believe it or not, this lady will kill you right now. Meiling, stop." Jian Feng hurriedly stops the young girl. "Don't hit her, Qianxue is immortal. If you hit her like this, she will die." At this time, Gong Qianxue is already curled up on the ground in pain, moaning and trembling. Wu Meiling is Wu Qishan's daughter, and she has always been swaggering around. Even if Jian Feng stops her, she still ruthlessly kicks Gong Qianxue twice before letting her go. "Senior brother, you have made a great contribution this time. Father will definitely put you in an important position in the future." In the future, what kind of woman can't be found? Why care about such an old and ugly furnace? If you have enough, it's better to dispose of it as soon as possible. Wu Meiling arrogantly leaves. Jian Feng then helps Gong Qianxue up from the ground. "Qianxue, are you all right?" "Jian Feng, why did you let them bully and humiliate me like this? Didn't you promise that you wouldn't let me down?" Gong Qianxue couldn't bear it anymore and lets out a hysterical scream. She regrets it. She shouldn't have promised Jian Feng to let him transfer the desolate energy to her body. She shouldn't have become his furnace. If not for this, how could she suffer such humiliation today? "Qianxue, they are master and junior sister after all, I can't disobey too much. But don't worry, when master and the others catch the immortal spirit body, I will definitely ask them to let you leave your furnace body." Excuses. All of them are excuses. Gong Qianxue lowers her head and doesn't speak, but her face is distorted. Sure enough, the people of this world can't be trusted. Jun Muyan, Jian Feng, Wu Mai Ling, she won't let anyone who has humiliated her off. Jian Feng casually comforts Gong Chenxue with a few words. Seeing that she doesn't speak, he thinks that she has let it go. Chenxue, you go to my room first, I have something to do, I'll be back in a while. Jian Feng had not returned to the cultivation continent for such a long time that he had used up all of his spiritual herbs and artifacts. That's why he was in such a difficult situation when he fought with Jun Muyan in the Yenwu continent. This time, he finally managed to return to the Xiuzhen continent with great difficulty. Of course, he has to make sufficient preparations before going to take revenge on Jun Muyan. Gong Chenxue waited until the edge of the sword had left before she raised her head, revealing an expression that was half ferocious like a ghost. Just as she was about to get up and leave, she heard a commotion outside. It's the Flowing Moon Gate. The elders of the Flowing Moon sect are here. The Flow Moon sect was a sect that the Cloud Light sect depended on, and its status in the cultivation continent was far higher than the Cloud Light sect. The Flow Moon sect had many subsidiary sects, and they had never sent messengers over in the past. The people of the Cloud Light sect were caught off guard, and hurriedly ran to welcome them. Gong Chenxue's expression changed. She quietly hid in the crowd and followed him out. In front of the sect, the elders of the Flow Moon sect had arrived. However, they were surrounding a masked woman in white. Their expressions were very respectful and careful. It could even be said that they were trying to curry favor with her. Chapter 758. Wu Qishan cautiously asks, "Excuse me, Honorable Envoy, what information do you want to inquire about? Several months ago, there was a 9-star alignment anomaly. Do you know who caused this anomaly? Where did it originate from? As long as you can provide the information, this Honorable Envoy guarantees that you will be given unexpected benefits." Gong Chenxue's pupils suddenly contract, her breathing becomes rapid. 9-star alignment anomaly, wasn't it caused by Jun Muyan? Everyone from the Yunguang sect shakes their heads. Everyone had seen the 9-star alignment phenomenon, but no one knew exactly how it had been triggered. The masked woman sighs softly, somewhat disappointed. This is already the outermost area of the Xiuzhen continent, but there is still no news about the moon spiritual route. How should she explain it to the sect master and young master Qingwan when she returns? After confirming that no one in the Yunguang sect knows who caused the 9-star alignment, the people of the Flowing Moon sect don't stay and leave. However, they haven't gone far. "Honorable Envoy, Darin, please wait." Gong Chenxue catches up, breathing heavily. As soon as everyone sees her, they immediately reveal a contemptuous expression. Gong Chenxue, however, stared straight at the veiled woman, gnashing her teeth as she said, "Honorable Envoy, if I say that I know who caused the 9-star pearl anomaly, can you help me successfully temper my body and soul?" The masked woman's pupils suddenly contract, her voice seems to change. "You said that you know who caused the 9-star alignment anomaly." "That's right," Gong Chenxue resolutely says, "not only do I know who it is, I also know where she is." "Impossible. Don't lie." The Flowing Moon sect elder disdainfully says, "We have been searching the Xiuzhen continent for several months, but we didn't even have a single clue. How could a waste like you know?" Gong Chenxue sneers, her expression sinister. "That's because you don't know that the person who caused the 9-star alignment anomaly isn't in the Xiuzhen continent, but in the Yenwu continent. She's called Jun Muyan." The masked woman's eyes widen, revealing an incredulous expression. The people of the Flowing Moon sect are also shocked. Immediately, the masked woman restrains her expression, frowning. "Impossible, the Yenwu continent has no spiritual energy. How could the spirit creation be successful? Are you deceiving this Honorable Envoy?" "No, how would I dare to deceive you?" Gong Chenxue anxiously says, "Honorable Envoy, please believe me, I was brought here from the Yenwu continent by the people of the Yunguang sect. Down there, I've interacted with that woman countless times. She plays a zither, and her strength increases by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. She was there when the phenomenon occurred. I guarantee that it was definitely her. It was caused by Jun Muyan." "Playing the zither?" the masked woman murmured, her expression becoming more serious. Could it be that the descendants of the Shun musicians have really appeared in the Yenwu continent? So, even if they turned the entire cultivation continent upside down, they still couldn't find him? However, going to the Yenwu continent to find someone is easier said than done. This was especially true for people like them who had been living in the Shoshen continent for a long time and had been contaminated with divine power. If he rashly goes to the Yenwu continent, his body will be contaminated with the air of desolation, and his cultivation might even regress. But what if that Jun Muyin is really the person the young master is looking for? Chapter 759. She fishes out a blood-red porcelain bottle, handing it over to Gong Chenxue. The thing in this bottle is called yin-yang evil qi. When it comes into contact with fire, it will become the strongest poison in the world, and it will automatically seek to invade the purest spiritual body. Once she was afflicted with yin-yang baleful qi, she could only be relieved by copulating with a man. Go to the Yenwu continent and burn this yin-yang sho around Muyin. If the yin-yang sho invades Muyin's body, it proves that she is indeed the one who caused the 9 stars and moon phenomenon. At that time, this envoy will naturally follow the yin-yang sho's trail to find her. If the yin-yang baleful qi didn't invade her body, it proves that what you said is a lie. At that time, the yin-yang baleful qi will bite back at you, and your face will be completely devoured. Hearing the masked woman's words, Gong Chenxue's hand trembled, but then she revealed a sinister smile. Esteemed envoy, don't worry, I will definitely not fail you. The veiled woman tossed out another bottle of pills. Take these pills. They can temporarily keep your cultivation level at the first stage of body refinement. As long as you can complete this task successfully, you will definitely receive many benefits. When Gong Chenxue took the pill, she almost cried tears of joy. It actually allowed her cultivation to instantly reach the first rank of the body refinement realm. This time, she had indeed gambled correctly. Jun Muyin, this time, your time of death has really come. As for me, I will step on your and your son's corpses to ascend and become an immortal. The veiled woman looked at Gong Chenxue's departing figure and sneered, revealing a look of disgust and disdain. Yin-yang sho was a treasure ranked 6th in Tianyi Men's 10 Great Mysterious Poisons. How could it be as simple as she had said? Those who were afflicted with the yin-yang evil qi could indeed be detoxified as long as they had intercourse with the opposite sex. However, the opposite sex had to be someone with divine power. If she had intercourse with an ordinary man, that woman called Jun Muyin would indeed be able to linger on while at death's door. However, it would suck the man's vitality dry, and there would be no relief. She could only be like a beast in heat, constantly yearning to seduce men. Isn't the young sect master afraid that the girl with the moon spiritual root will become the monarch's fiancée? At that time, would the god monarch still be interested in a flirtatious and shameless woman? As for the young sect master, as long as she loses her reputation, it will be enough for him to seize her moon spiritual root and Shun musician-related inheritance. As for that Gong Chenxue, the masked woman didn't tell her that the moment she released the yin-yang baleful qi, she would begin to receive the yin-yang baleful qi's backlash. Her ending would only be more miserable than Jun Muyin's. The veiled woman smiled faintly and said to the people of Flow Moon sect behind her, I'm going back to the cultivation continent to report this news to young sect master. You can go back by yourselves. Farewell, honorable envoy. The masked woman's figure slowly vanished, and the storm she stirred was about to stir up in the 3 realms. 2 months later, Xiaobao's cultivation reached high-level Xiantian realm. The people of the Hellflame Valley were already numb from the shock. They all expressed that this was normal and there was nothing to be alarmed about. Flip's table. How could he not be surprised? That was a mere 3 months. In just 3 months, he had advanced from peak heaven realm to upper Xiantian realm. That was a 5-year-old child yet he was already a high-level Xiantian realm expert. Mu Yang looks at the baby nestled in her arms, and her heart aches terribly. In just 2 short months, her Xiaobao had become thinner and firmer. Chapter 760. At this moment, as long as Xiaobao appeared in any camp, The aura around him would cause everyone to keep quiet out of fear. At that moment, they completely forgot that the child was only 5 years old. In their eyes, Xiaobao was a king that looked down upon the world, and he was the master that they were willing to serve and serve loyally. This made Mu Yang feel somewhat helpless. Because compared to her, the people of the Netherfire army are obviously more afraid of Di Mingju and Xiaobao. Instead, they are getting closer to her day by day. Could it be that she had not tormented these people enough recently? So much so that they felt that they were very approachable? Oh, in the past 2 days, she had come up with some new ways to play, Floating Like a Dream, and Realm of Stars. He might as well try it out on this group of fellows. Under the scorching sun, everyone from the Netherflame Valley shivered, feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Nyangqin, Xiaobao wants to take the fat rabbit out of the valley for a day tomorrow. Is that okay? Xiaobao raises his head and looks at Mu Yang with his big watery eyes. No matter how intimidating he was on the outside, in front of Mu Yang, Xiaobao would always be that lovable, calm, and precocious little boy who was infinitely attached to his mother. Mu Yang gently pinches his cheeks. All right, where does Xiaobao want to go? Mother will go with you. A conflicted look appeared on Xiaobao's face. I really want to go out with Nyangqin. Nyangqin has been forcibly occupied by that lecher for a long time. However, he couldn't do it this time. He wants to stealthily prepare a birthday present for his mother. How can he let her go with him? That wouldn't be considered a surprise. Xiaobao firmly shook his head. Mother, Xiaobao wants to go by myself. Mu Yang was a little startled. This was the first time Xiaobao refused to stay with her. She felt a little disappointed. Her Xiaobao had grown up and had his own little secrets. But Mu Yang still respects Xiaobao's wishes. Then can you bring big sister Yingmai along? No. Xiaobao shook his head even more resolutely. If big sister Yingmai knew, then the lecher would definitely know as well. He wouldn't let the lecher know about his mother's birthday and compete with him for favor. Mu Yang frowned slightly. Xiaobao immediately said, Mother, Xiaobao is very powerful. I won't be bullied. Xiaobao will also be very obedient and will definitely come back before dark. In the face of her son's rare act of acting like a spoiled child, Mu Yang is powerless to resist. Finally, Xiaobao takes Chang Yu and a few elites of the ink camp and sets off. Looking at the figures of the group gradually disappearing into the distance, Mu Yang's heart surged with an indescribable irritation. However, when she wanted to think about it, the irritation disappeared. Mu Yan secretly laughs at herself for being overly suspicious. In the current Yanwu continent, there is almost no one who can beat Xiaobao. What's more, there was Chang Yu and the fat rabbit following them. How could anything happen? This is the first time that Xiaobao has made such a firm request. Mu Yang feels that as his mother, she should believe in her baby. Mu Yang tossed aside the faintly discernible uneasiness that lingered in her heart, and turned to look for the Netherflame army to test out her new, Floating Like a Dream. Not long after, waves of ghostly wails and wolf howls came from the Hellflame Valley. At this moment, everyone in the ink camp finally remembers the fear of being dominated by the demoness. Pooh! What she-devil? She's Miss. How could they be fooled by the gentle appearance of the current Miss? Who could tell them how to escape from the terrifying nightmare dream? Woo woo woo. Chapter 761. At least this time, the mist didn't let them take off their clothes and put on an enchanting pose for Liu Beiyu to draw our Guan, who doesn't know that if it weren't for a certain narrow-minded man, Mu Yan would really want to unlock several new painting poses. What they should thank was a certain Jun Shong's overbearing possessiveness. The sky gradually darkened and the zither music that tortured the Netherfire army slowly dissipated. Mu Yang's hand presses on the zither strings, emitting a rapid sound. She did not look at the wailing Netherflame army below her. Instead, she raised her head and looked at the sun that was slowly setting in the west. It was already 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and Xiaobao still hadn't returned. At this moment, the sound of messy footsteps came from outside. Miss, there's an accident. The people from the ink camp come in carrying a man covered in blood. Seeing who it is, Mu Yan's heart suddenly sinks. This man is precisely one of the ink camp elites that went out with Xiao Bao this morning. Miss, little master, he was taken away. Mu Yang quickly puts a pill into his mouth. Where is it? Who are you? Wu Wang. Wu Wang Mountain Range. I don't know who they are, but their cultivation is extremely high. Captain Chang Yu said they should be from the cultivation continent. Also, there's also Gong Chenxue and Jian Feng. Mu Yang's breathing suddenly becomes heavy. Another person from the cultivation continent had actually appeared. Was it because of Jian Feng and Gong Chenxue? We suffered heavy casualties, and only I managed to escape. Chang. Captain Chang chased after Little Master. Miss, you have to save them quickly. Miss, we'll immediately send troops to save Little Master. Guan Hu said anxiously. None of you move. Mu Yang shouted sternly, her expression as cold as ice. The Nether Flame Valley is under emergency martial law. No one is allowed to enter or leave without orders. I'll save him myself. Miss, how could you risk your life alone? Mu Yang's gaze coldly sweeps over everyone, her voice carrying supreme majesty. Those who disobey will be expelled from the ghastly Flame Valley. It was silent below, but everyone's faces were filled with unwillingness and anxiety. Mu Yang no longer pays attention to them, but instead looks at Ying Mai. Let's go. Ying Mai hesitates for a moment, wondering if he should inform Di Mingju. In the end, he doesn't say anything and nods to follow Muyan. Jun Shong's avatar is currently handling some matters in the polar domain. If you rashly interrupt him, someone in the polar domain might discover that Jun Shong's main body isn't in the Xiaoxian continent. The last time Jun Shong was injured and went into seclusion, it already made some people in the polar domain suspicious. What's more, it was just a bunch of clowns from the cultivation continent. At worst, she could just directly intervene and settle it for Miss June. 2 hours ago. This time, Xiao Bao came to the Wuwang Mountains to pick a very rare age-retaining flower as a birthday gift for Mu Yang. This kind of flower was very beautiful. It would change color according to the weather 24 hours a day. The most important thing is that there's a prescription recorded in the treasured canon of supreme drafts. After taking the drafts refined according to that prescription, not only can it nourish the yin and nourish the complexion, it can also keep a woman's appearance unchanged for at least 100 years. Little Master, the Miss is already beautiful enough. You still want her to become even more beautiful. How can you let other women live? An elite from the Ink Camp jokes. Chapter 762. It's just that Muyan's character is too valiant. So much so that the people of the Ink Camp often forget that their master is a stunningly beautiful girl. Xiao Bao says in all seriousness, Nyang Qin doesn't have the most beautiful, only more beautiful. Nyang Qin doesn't compare with other women. There's no one in the world that can compare with his mother. Women don't have them, and men even less. The people of the Ink Camp laugh in unison. Although they know that the Miss is invincible in the world, the Little Master's Oedipus attribute is really obvious. No wonder the Little Master and son-in-law are always at daggers drawn when they see each other, wishing that they could kick the other away from the Miss. Only Chang Yu is absent-minded. In his mind, it's like the image of a young girl plucking the strings of a zither, the indolent and beautiful countenance with a light smile. Miss Jun Muyan, that's right. Is there a woman more beautiful than her in the world? At least in his heart, there isn't. In his heart, she's like a goddess from the 9th heaven, an existence that can only be watched from afar, one that cannot be coveted. At least he can still accompany the Miss, watching her from afar, watching over her. His vacant gaze carries a trace of bitterness and admiration as it sweeps through the wilderness. Suddenly, a gorgeous light streaks through his eyes. Chang Yu composes himself, and walks towards the direction of the light. Soon, a flower hidden in the grass appears before his eyes. The flower is very small, but it's extremely beautiful. Its branches and leaves gently sway in the breeze, sprinkling a moving luster. The splendor of that moment just now was because it had changed from one color to another. The everlasting beauty flower, found. Chang Yu turns his head, just as he's about to call Xiao Bao. But he sees that on the other side of the mountain, A white-haired old man and a charming but flustered young girl are walking in Xiaobao's direction. This little Gongzi, my grandfather, and I were separated from the guards at home. Now we're hungry and thirsty, could you please give us something to eat? The charming young girl looks at Xiaobao expectantly. Her slightly pale complexion and chapped lips show that she's really thirsty. The young girl even lightly licks her lips with the tip of her pink tongue. She turns her gaze towards the people of the ink camp, looking indescribably delicate and charming. And the old man she's supporting is also panting, looking like he'll faint at any moment. Any man who sees such a pair of grandfather and grandson would be unable to help but feel pity. Let alone a 4 or 5-year-old naive child. Xiaobao glanced at them with his deep blue eyes and said in a childish voice, "Come here." The girl was overjoyed, and a smug and contemptuous look flashed across her eyes. However, he pretended to be grateful as he supported the old man and walked toward Xiaobao while saying, "Thank you, little young master. Thank you, little young master." However, in the next moment, the childish yet cold voice interrupted her. "Kill." It's only one word, but everyone in the ink camp, including Chang Yu who's not too far away, simultaneously moves. At the same time, Xiaobao also made a move. A thick profound energy and a swift and fierce killing move hurriedly attacked the young girl and the white-haired old man. Bastard! The girl couldn't dodge in time and was directly stabbed by Chang Yu's sword. Although she managed to avoid being hit in a vital spot, a bloody wound still appeared on her waist. The white-haired old man's reaction was much faster than the young girl's, but Xiaobao's sword was also much sharper than Chang Yu's. His face, chest, and thighs had been inflicted with wounds by little Bao's sword qi, from which blood was gushing out. Chapter 763. A cold woman's voice came from the bushes beside them. Hearing this voice, Chang Yu and the people from the ink camp simultaneously stare blankly, even Xiaobao wrinkles his brows. Not far away, people walked out one after another. The strange beasts that roamed the Wuwang Mountains during the day weren't very strong. Sensing the aura of these people, they whimpered and ran far away with their tails between their legs. Among this group of people, there were two that stood out the most. They were Jian Feng and Gong Chenxue, who were wanted by the Hellflame Valley but had disappeared without a trace. Gong Chenxue, Jian Feng, you two bastards are still alive. Hearing the ink camp's question, Gong Chenxue's eyes reveal a murderous intent. That slut Jun Muyan still hasn't died, how could I die? Today, I rose from the ashes to let that bitch have a taste of the pain I felt back then. I want her to kneel in front of me and beg for mercy like a dog. Xiaobao sneered and said, "It's not dark yet. You start dreaming, old woman." Bah, a piece of trash like her kneeling in front of our miss and pretending to be a dog. Even our miss thinks it's dirty. I wonder who was the stray dog that fled in front of our miss a few months ago and even killed its parents with its own hand. Gong Chenxue's face twisted hideously. Who was the one who had caused her to end up like this? It was Jun Muyan. It was all Jun Muyan's fault. Jian Feng grabbed Gong Chenxue and said in a deep voice, "Chenxue, don't be impulsive. Master's business is more important." The beautiful girl who had gotten up and treated her wounds sneered, "You talk so much about how powerful you are, but it turns out that you were just a stray dog back then." I don't know what flowery words he used to deceive the esteemed envoy, but he actually bestowed you with a high-grade medicinal pill. After Gong Chenxue consumed the medicinal pill given by the masked woman, her strength directly reached the first rank of the body refinement realm. Hearing that the elixir had been given by the revered envoy, the people of the Cloud Light sect who had originally looked down on her with disdain could not help but feel somewhat fearful, and their attitudes became much more restrained. However, a cultivation vessel was still a cultivation vessel. No matter which continent they were on, they were the lowest and most despised existences. The dainty young girl was precisely the daughter of the Cloud Light sect's sect leader, Wu Meiling. How could she look up to Gong Chenxue? Meeting Gong Chenxue's fierce gaze, she sneered, "What are you staring at, slut? Did I say something wrong? You're just a lowly furnace. What qualifications do you have to be on equal footing with us? Do you really think that senior Jian Feng will marry you?" Gong Chenxue's expression was cold. What she hated the most right now was people mentioning her as a human cauldron. Her hatred towards Feng and the Cloud Light sect deepened. That's enough. Let's not talk too much. Let's capture the immortal body first, Wu Qishan said from the side. As he spoke, he looked at Little Treasure with burning greed in his eyes. Little fellow, this old man can give you a chance. Come with me obediently, and this old man will spare your subordinates' lives. What do you think? From the moment these people appeared, Chang Yu's expression became more and more solemn. He could clearly feel how powerful these people were. Moreover, the aura coming off their bodies is definitely not something that a person from the Yenwu continent would have. Chang Yu sucked in a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice, "You guys bring the little master away first, I'll stop them." "Captain, how could we leave you behind?" Chapter 764. The eyes of everyone in the ink camp suddenly turned sour and unbearable, but their eyes slowly become resolute and boiling hot. That's right, they are the Nether Flame Army, fearless and unstoppable. Brothers live together, die together. In the silent and austere jungle, the smell of blood pervades the air. Wu Qishan gasps violently, holding the already unconscious Xiao Bao in his hands. He glances at the ink camp members lying in a pool of blood, his heart overwhelmed with shock. He originally thought that dealing with a few mortals of the Yenwu continent would be as easy as turning his hand over. He didn't expect that the strength of these people would be so frightening. Especially this child with the immortal spirit body. He's clearly only 4 or 5 years old, but his strength is actually frightening to such an extent. People from the Xiozhan continent would have their cultivation suppressed when they come to the Yenwu continent. Wu Qishan is also afraid of harming the baby's immortal spirit body, and almost capsized in the hands of this child. Later, he had to use Yunguang sect's unique elixirs to knock this little baby out. Even so, these people still killed 4 of his disciples. For disciples with a body-forging cultivation were actually killed by a group of mortals who don't even know what spiritual power is. Wu Qishan's expression is a bit unsightly. It seems that he has underestimated the people of the Yenwu continent. Even a 4 or 5-year-old child is so powerful, then what about that woman called Muyan? What kind of strength would that be? How troublesome would that Nether Flame Valley be? Wu Qishan's face darkens little by little. His gaze falls on the unconscious child, a scorching flame ignites in his eyes. He is determined to obtain the immortal spirit body. "Meiling, take your fellow apprentices and silence these people," he says in a low voice. "Feng, immediately find a quiet and remote place. Master wants to refine an elixir at once." No matter where it is in the 3 realms, the immortal spirit body is a treasure that everyone fights over. If he were to bring it back to the Xiozhan continent, there's no telling if the Yunguang sect would be able to keep it. It should be known that when the immortal spirit body crosses the space barrier, it will inevitably cause a big commotion. It's impossible to not attract the attention of other sects. It would be better to refine the immortal spirit body into an elixir here, and wait until his strength has advanced by leaps and bounds before returning to the Xiozhan continent. Although the Yenwu continent's atmosphere is barren and heterogeneous, even if the elixir only absorbs half of the immortal spirit body's effect, it would still be enough for his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. Chang Yu felt a chill run down his spine. The pungent smell of blood filled the tip of his nose, and all his consciousness seemed to be far away from him. He absent-mindedly opened his eyes and saw that Xiaobao was being carried in someone's arms and was moving away bit by bit. The words of those people reverberated faintly in his ears. Immortal spirit body. Refined into a medicinal pill. They wanted to kill the Little Master? No. How could that be? Little Master was young Miss Life, the source of all of young Miss Happiness. Without the Little Master, the young Miss would never be able to be happy. He won't allow anyone to hurt Muyan. He won't allow anyone to take away everything that Muyan cares about. In a trance, a scorching flame sprang up from his body. An energy that came from the depths of his memories rushed into his body. The memories that had disappeared from his mind once again came back intermittently. He isn't someone from the Yenwu continent. He came from the cultivation continent. His power was sealed the moment he fell, along with his memories. Chang Yu still couldn't remember who he was or where he came from. Chapter 765. Junior sister, these people are already dead, only these two still have a breath left. A Yunguang sect disciple kicks Chang Yu and another member of the ink camp in front of Wu Mailing. An insignificant group of mortals actually dares to hurt this miss. I'll slice off your flesh piece by piece right now. I'd like to see if your bones are really that hard. I'll wait for you to beg for mercy from this miss like dogs. Wu Mailing smiles sinisterly, her charming face full of resentment. She pulls up that semi-conscious member of the ink camp, sneering, if you obediently beg for mercy right now, this miss can still give you a quick death. Kill me, cut me up, want me, to beg for mercy, dream on. That person opens his eyes with difficulty, spitting a mouthful of bloody foam on her face. His eyes are filled with disdain as he faces death calmly. Wu Mailing is thoroughly enraged, raising her hand to cut off his tongue. But at this moment, she hears the terrified shouts of her fellow apprentices. Junior sister, be careful. Before Wu Mailing could react to what's happening, she feels a searing pain in her abdomen. A fist burning with flames directly pierces through her abdomen. Wu Mailing dumbly lowers her head to look at her abdomen, her body violently twitches, then she unwillingly falls down. You, just who are you? Everyone from the Yunguang sect looks at Chang Yu in shock. He's covered in blood, his face pale, his body on the verge of collapse, but that hand that has pierced through Wu Mailing's abdomen is burning with a blazing flame. When Wu Mailing's blood and internal organs come into contact with those flames, they're directly burned to ashes. Chang Yu's calm and unwavering eyes sweep over the remaining Yunguang sect disciples, his killing intent suddenly erupting. After a short quarter of an hour, the disciples of the Yunguang sect who stayed behind to silence the witnesses all fall to the ground, dying with remaining grievances. Each person has a large hole burned through by the flames. Looking through that hole, one can see the internal organs that have long been scorched inside. All the corpses have faces of disbelief and horror. They don't even understand why they died. How could they so easily die in the hands of a mortal from the Yenwu continent? And Chang Yu is clearly just a mortal from the Yenwu continent. How could he release that kind of flame? Chang Yu's body shakes. He suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. He can no longer support himself, kneeling on the ground. Captain, are you okay? Chang Yu looks towards the ink camp member who was just threatened by Wu Mailing, and says in a hoarse voice, you go back to Hellflame Valley and inform Miss, Captain, what about you? I'll chase after the young master. Chang Yu fiercely bit the tip of his tongue and stood up shakily. I will never allow anyone to hurt our little master. After Chang Yu and that member of the ink camp have left, Wu Mailing, who's lying on the ground like a corpse, suddenly inhales a mouthful of cold air, letting out a painful groan. Her abdomen was gurgling with blood, and her intestines were protruding out of her body. She had never felt such pain before, and she couldn't help but cry and wail. Father, senior brother, it hurts. Save me. Save me. Woo. Suddenly, she saw the medicine pouch not far away. That was a pill that Wu Chishan had specially refined for her, and there were many life-saving medicines inside. Great, as long as she took the pill, she would be saved. Wu Mailing crawled towards the medicine pouch with difficulty, her eyes filled with the desire to survive. Chapter 766. Wu Mailing cries out in pain. She raises her head and grins maliciously at Gong Qianxue. Gong Qianxue, what are you doing? Let me go. Wu Mailing eagerly shouts, quickly give me the medicine pouch. Give you the medicine pouch? Gong Qianxue picks up the medicine pouch and giggles. Wu Mailing, do you think I'm that stupid? After you've survived, you can properly humiliate me. Gong Qianxue, you, don't talk nonsense. How could I humiliate you? Give me the medicine pouch, I'll go back and guarantee that I'll tell my father to accept you as a disciple. I'll also let brother Jian Feng marry you. I beg you, quickly give me the medicine pouch. Gong Qianxue looks at her pleading appearance like a dog, and she can't help but laugh heartily, feeling indescribably carefree. Under Wu Meiling's expectant gaze, Gong Qianxue opens the medicine pouch. The medicine inside tumbles out, and she crushes them one by one. Wu Meiling suddenly widens her eyes, letting out a hysterical scream. Gong Qianxue, you slut, you actually dare to destroy my medicine. My father won't let you off. A foot ruthlessly steps on her wound, until Wu Meiling's eyes turn white, and she completely stops breathing. Gong Qianxue delightedly looks at her appearance of dying with everlasting regret, and giggles. Then the laughter gets louder and louder, approaching insanity. Jun Muyan, Wu Meiling, Jian Feng, Yunguang sect, all the people who have offended her, Gong Qianxue. She wants them to die a horrible death. Gong Qianxue looks in the direction of the departing members of the Ink camp. Of course, she knows that they're going to inform Jun Muyan. But Jun Muyan has come, and she's fighting with the people of Yunguang sect, so she can profit from it. Jun Muyan, don't let me down. The yin-yang demon in my hands is hungry and thirsty, waiting to send you to hell. Miss, found it, it's here. Following the voice, Muyan sees a ground full of corpses. Among them are the elites of the Ink camp, and there are also several strangers. Muyan looks at the corpses of the Ink camp members, and the light in her peach blossom eyes is slowly replaced by a bone-piercing chill. She stretches out her hand and gently brushes the air, collecting the corpses of everyone from the Ink camp into her space. Miss, there are still remnants of spiritual energy in these people's dantians. They are indeed people from the cultivation world. Ying Mai casually kicked the already dead Wu Meiling and said indifferently. Mu Yang's expression becomes even colder, and the corners of her mouth slowly curve into a succubus-like smile. I don't care which corner they came from. Anyone who dared to touch her people or abduct her xiaobao would be killed without mercy. Mu Yang quickly found the traces left by Chang Yu on the tree trunk. The two of them chased after him as fast as lightning. At the western end of the Wuwang mountain range, they saw Chang Yu being besieged by several practitioners. Chang Yu's condition was very bad. His clothes were soaked in blood. Even his eyes were covered with cigars, and there was a deep scar from his forehead to his left cheek. But his eyes were as ferocious as a wild beast's, and he had no intention of retreating. With every punch, flames burned and could cause a Shouja to wail in pain. The Cloud Light sect disciples looked at Chang Yu with fear in their eyes. Chapter 767. Yes, as long as you are willing to stand by and do nothing, our Cloud Light sect guarantees that we will not act against you. On the contrary, no matter how powerful you are only one person. Do you really think you can contend against my entire Cloud Light sect? Chang Yu's blood-red eyes swept across the people surrounding him, his hoarse voice filled with a thick killing intent. Return the little master to me, otherwise, I will flatten the entire Cloud Light sect. What a joke, you want to destroy my Cloud Light sect. Stop joking around. Everyone, let's attack together. This guy is already an arrow at the end of its flight, let's kill him together. The people of the Cloud Light sect shouted, their swords flashing, attacking together. Chang Yu clenched his fists, and the flames on his fists soared into the sky. Ah! Screams of agony could be heard from the mouths of the Cloud Light sect disciples. The fire in Chang Yu's hand was like the Grim Reaper's scythe. As long as it was lightly touched, it would burn into the bones, causing unbearable pain. The disciples of the Cloud Light sect were all shocked. Just who was this man? Why was his spiritual fire so powerful? On the cultivation continent, there should only be that sect that could cultivate the spiritual fire to such a superb level. But how could a cultivator from that sect end up in such a desolate place like the Yanwu continent? Who was this man? Just as the Cloud Light sect disciples were panicking, suddenly, Chang Yu punched out again, but the flames burned for a while, before suddenly being extinguished. The Cloud Light sect disciples were instantly overjoyed. His spiritual chi has been used up. Quick, everyone attack together. Ha ha ha, this time, you're dead for sure. In Yanwu continent, it is extremely difficult to gather spiritual chi. Therefore, once the spiritual energy was exhausted, It was almost impossible to replenish it in a short period of time. Without spiritual chi, without that terrifying spiritual fire, what was there to be afraid of? The auras of the disciples of the Cloud Light sect surged, and one of them flew high into the air, the long sword in his hand chopping down fiercely towards Chang Yu. However, his body was still in mid-air when he heard the melodious sound of a zither. Before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his body. Bang 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 tilde. Countless bloody holes appeared on his body and blood spurted out. That person fell straight down from the sky. Chang Yu stood there in a daze, his body unable to support himself, swaying a little. In his ears, he seemed to hear the zither music that he yearned for day and night. The tip of his nose was slowly entangled with that unforgettable fragrance. Was she here? Was she finally here? That was great. Little Master could be saved. She wouldn't be sad anymore. Chang Yu's body swayed and suddenly collapsed. Chang Yu. The familiar voice that he had been anticipating for a long time rang in his ears. Chang Yu, how are you? When the pill was stuffed into his mouth, Chang Yu felt the vitality that had disappeared return bit by bit. Even his dried-up dantian was slowly surging with spiritual energy. With difficulty, Chang Yu opened his blood-blurred eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Miss, don't worry about me. The Little Master was taken to the west side of the Wuwang mountain range. You must save the Little Master. He is a selfish man. He was not so noble and loyal. He was concerned about his Little Master and worried about his Little Master's safety. But what he was more afraid of, and what he couldn't bear to see, was that the girl in front of him would be sad. He also knew that the Little Master was her everything, an existence that she viewed as important as her own life. So, even if he had to die, he had to help her protect Little Master's life. Chapter 768. Before he fainted, he heard the girl's voice, which was as clear as the sounds of nature, but as cold as Azura's. Don't worry, I'll save Xiao Bao, and I'll let them know the consequences of touching my, Jun Muyan's people. After making sure that Chang Yu is completely unconscious, Muyan lets Yingmai take him to a safe place. Following that, she raised her head to look at the remaining Cloud Light sect disciples, the corners of her mouth slowly curling into a coquettish and bloodthirsty smile. Speak, who are you people, and where have you taken my son? If you tell me clearly, I might let you die a quick death. The disciples of the Cloud Light sect looked at each other, then said angrily, a mere mortal dares to boast so shamelessly. Now that the mysterious cultivator had died, just based on this little mortal girl, she wanted to contend against the great Cloud Light sect. What a joke! The disciples of the Cloud Light sect roared angrily, their swords dancing wildly. However, they soon found out who the joke was. A ruined temple outside the Wuwang Mountains. In front of a huge cauldron, Wu Chishan was muttering something to it. A moment later, a ball of flame suddenly sprang up in the cauldron, and the air in the dilapidated temple instantly became hot and heavy. Sect leader is really too amazing. To be able to ignite the Dan fire in such a short time in this barren Yanwu continent. The sect leader's alchemy level is already one of the best in the northern region of the ancient green world. As long as he takes the pill refined from the immortal spirit body, his cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. At that time, who in the northern region will be a match for our Cloud Light sect? Wu Chishan listened to his disciples' praises and felt an indescribable joy in his heart. He knew that this was an extremely rare opportunity for him and the Cloud Light sect. If he grasped it, he would be able to soar into the sky. Bring the celestial physique over. Just as Wu Chishan finished speaking, a disciple of the Cloud Light sect exclaimed, Master, quick, look, immortal spiritual body. Immortal spiritual body. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, and they saw that the child was no longer where Little Bao had been lying unconscious. In its place was a huge, round, white ball of fur. What is this? Wu Chishan was furious. Where is my immortal physique? The people of the Cloud Light sect looked at each other, their expressions all filled with shock. How could the celestial physique disappear? Not to mention that the immortal spiritual body had already fainted from the sect leader's secret medicine and wouldn't wake up anytime soon. What's more, to be on the safe side, Wu Qishan used the immortal binding rope to restrict his movements. Who could steal the fairy body from right under their noses? Master, don't be fooled by that beast. The immortal physique is wrapped up by that beast. The clear voice of a woman suddenly came from outside the ruined temple. Gong Qianxue stumbled in, her hair a mess and her eyes red. As soon as she sees Wu Qishan, she kneels down with a thump, sobbing uncontrollably. Master, Qianxue is useless. Jun Muyan's subordinates actually have a strong person who can use spiritual fire. All of us were no match for them. Qianxue risked her life to escape, but Meiling junior sister she was killed by that thief. As she spoke, her body swayed and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Junior sister. Jian Feng supported her, his face full of worry. Qianxue, how are you? Chapter 769. Jian Feng recalls the mysterious people at Muyan's side, their cultivation unfathomable, and unhesitatingly believes Gong Qianxue's words. He looks at Wu Qishan with tears in his eyes. Master, that Muyan indeed has several people with extremely high cultivation, even this disciple is not their match. I'm afraid that Meiling died at their hands. Wu Qishan's eyes are frosty, his whole body overflowing with murderous intent. Jun Muyan, an insignificant mortal actually dares to kill my, Wu Qishan's, daughter. Good, very good. His gaze turns to look at Gong Qianxue with a bit of suspicion and coldness. It's very obvious that Wu Qishan has some doubts about his daughter's death, but Gong Qianxue has escaped. But the words that come out of his mouth are, just now, you said that the immortal body was wrapped up by that beast. What do you mean? Gong Qianxue's eyes flash with a sinister cold light. Sure enough, although Wu Meiling is Wu Qishan's daughter, in his heart, it's far less important than the immortal body. However, in this way, Wu Qishan and Jun Muyan will have an irreconcilable enmity of killing their son. Only when both of them are injured, can she, Gong Qianxue, reap the benefit. However, when she raises her head, her face has already regained its sincerity. Master, this disciple has seen this furball. Its original form is a rabbit, but it's very strange. It can even swallow a sacred beast egg. Now, the immortal body is bound to be wrapped up and protected by it. Hearing that, Wu Qishan's gaze falls on the white furball, and he can't help but sneer. A mere mortal beast also wants to snatch the immortal body from me, simply overestimating its capabilities. As soon as his voice falls, the long sword in his hand is already unsheathed, fiercely chopping at the furball. However, the expected scene of flesh and blood splattering did not appear. Instead, Wu Qishan feels a huge recoil from the sword. His whole body takes a step back. And the big furball on the ground is unharmed. A pair of Meng Bin eyes peek out from the furball, looking at Wu Qishan with disdain. You want to injure this rabbit with a mere broken iron sword? Pa! This divine beast, dream on. Wu Qishan's expression is extremely unsightly. The surrounding Yunguang sect disciples look at each other, not quite understanding what's going on. Why didn't Master slash down with his sword? What they didn't know was that it was the rebound force from the fat rabbit's body that prevented Wu Qishan's sword from cutting down. Wu Qishan channeled all the spiritual energy in his body into the sword. He tried several times, but to no avail. Finally, he flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared, "All of you, attack together. Chop this beast into minced meat." The disciples of the Cloud Light sect all rushed forward, using knives and axes, and some even used fire to burn it. However, all 18 kinds of martial arts were used up. The white furball, on the other hand, seemed to be impervious to swords and spears. There wasn't a single scratch on it. Master! Jian Feng anxiously looked at Wu Qishan. What should I do now? Could it be that he could only watch helplessly as the immortal physique was right in front of him, but he couldn't eat it? Moreover, just where did this furball come from? How could it be so powerful? Gong Qianxue looked at the fat rabbit with a gloomy gaze. It was this damned rabbit that had snatched his sacred beast egg back then and had even directly swallowed it. Otherwise, how could he have fallen to such a state? Master, I don't think there's any need to chop this beast apart. Just throw this beast and the immortal physique into the alchemy furnace together to refine it, Gong Qianxue suddenly said. Chapter 770. She did not believe that this beast could even resist spiritual fire. Hearing this, Wu Qishan's brows furrowed. He did not know what breed this rabbit was, but if its body contained poison or desolate air, then the effects of the medicinal pills that were refined would be greatly reduced. But right now, he could not care less. He could not possibly let him give up on the celestial body, right? Very quickly, a Cloud Light sect disciple threw the white ball of fur into the furnace. Wu Qishan circulated his spiritual energy, activating the pill fire. Very quickly, the flame within the furnace burned fiercely. The entire furnace emitted clanking sounds. Haha, looks like even this beast cannot withstand the sect leader's pill fire. Of course, the sect leader's pill fire is a true spiritual fire. Even iron and stone can be melted in a few breaths of time, let alone a mere ball of fur. Wu Qishan's face revealed a proud expression, activating the spiritual fire and refining for a full hour. The movement within the furnace became smaller and smaller, but the top of the furnace slowly emitted green smoke. Wu Qishan took a step forward, opened the furnace lid, and looked inside. The Cloud Light sect disciples also surrounded curiously. The inside of the furnace was pitch black, there were no medicinal pills, nor was there a white ball of fur. Strange, was the pill concoction a success or a failure? Is there a black shadow at the bottom left of the furnace? What is that? Just at this moment, the black shadow below the furnace moved, suddenly revealing a pair of pea-sized eyes and a three-petaled mouth in the darkness. The three-petaled mouth slightly opened, and with a pu sound, a cloud of black gas sprayed out, instantly enveloping everyone around the furnace. Awu! 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 The pea-sized eyes looked at Wu Qishan in disdain. Idiot, you want to burn this divine beast with just the lowest grade of spiritual fire? Dream on. Beside the furnace, everyone's expressions were stiff, their heads and faces black. Wu Qishan slowly touched his own face in disbelief, but what he touched was a face full of furnace ash. This was a humiliation, this was a beast, a blatant humiliation to him, the Cloud Light sect leader. Beast, I'll kill you. Wu Qishan raised his sword, fiercely stabbing towards the black shadow inside. He wanted to skin this damned beast, pull out his tendons, and dismember his corpse into 10,000 pieces. However, just like before, his sword, his attack, and his spiritual power couldn't do anything to this beast. Even the sect leader's Dan fire can't refine this animal. What is it? What should we do now? Why don't I bring the immortal spirit body back to the cultivation continent to refine pills? Are you stupid? The immortal spiritual body passing through the barrier of space will definitely cause a huge commotion. Do you think that if we bring the immortal spiritual body back to the Shozhen continent, the immortal spiritual body will still belong to our Cloud Light sect? But even the sect leader can't do anything to this beast. Hearing the whispered discussions of the Cloud Light sect disciples, and seeing the disciples who had originally worshipped him reveal suspicious and uneasy expressions, Wu Qishan's face twisted. Then, a look of determination flashed across his eyes, as if he had made up his mind. I didn't want to use this thing in the cultivation continent, Wu Qishan said in a low voice, as he took out a translucent stone that was completely fiery red from his chest. His gaze gloomily stared at the black, fat rabbit in the furnace. Raging Flames Fire Crystal. It can raise the grade of spiritual fire to the 3rd level. But it will instantly consume a large amount of my spiritual energy. Chapter 771. As for those who came from the cultivation continent, if they did not have spiritual energy in their body, it was equivalent to losing all of their fighting strength. The most important thing is that it could also be eroded by the Yenwu continent's barren air. Wu Qishan held the fire crystal in one hand and circulated the spiritual qi in the other. The alchemy fire that had been extinguished in the furnace burned again. Damned beast! You forced me to do all of this. A rank 3 spirit fire can directly burn a mortal's soul. In a while, you'll be burned alive in hellish torment. The moment the blazing flame crystal appeared, the fat rabbit raised its head abruptly. Shock and fear flashed across those green pea-sized eyes that were filled with disdain. He suddenly jumped up from the bottom, trying to get out of the cauldron. However, he was still a step too late. The fire crystal in Wu Chishan's hand was thrown into the furnace. At the same time, a large amount of spiritual power poured out of Wu Chishan's body and into the alchemy fire. What was originally just a small ball of flame suddenly burned fiercely. The fat rabbit only felt an intense burning pain coming from its bones and blood, coming from the depths of its soul. Awoo! The pain made it let out a sorrowful cry. Instinctively, he let go of the person wrapped around him and tried to escape from the burning flames. As long as it exerted all its strength, it could smash a cauldron at any time. However, just as the fat rabbit let go of Xiaobao, it saw the blazing flames curling towards Xiaobao's body. The extreme heat curled Xiaobao's black hair and scorched his clothes in an instant. Although it hadn't reached his skin, the extreme heat caused the unconscious Xiaobao to sweat profusely and frown. Little Master would die. If it left just like that, the Little Master would immediately be burned to death. No. It would never allow its favorite Little Master to die. The fat rabbit didn't even think before it spread its body and wrapped Xiaobao inside. The searing pain made it wail again. His entire body was shaking violently. However, the pain did not lessen. Instead, it melted the skin and flesh on the surface of its body bit by bit. However, this time, the fat rabbit had no intention of letting go of Xiaobao. Little Master was the Little Master it had acknowledged. Even if their Little Master was still too weak, they still couldn't form a contract. But in its heart, its Little Master would always be its master. Its memory was a blur, and it had forgotten its past. It only vaguely knew that it used to be a very powerful divine beast. But it knew that it was not happy in the past. But now, every day that it spent with the she-devil and Little Master was so happy and peaceful that it was unwilling to give up even if it had to die. Wu Chishan opened the lid and looked inside the furnace. When he saw that the fat rabbit's body was starting to become a bloody mess under the burning flames, he revealed a carefree smile. Just you wait. In another 15 minutes, you'll completely become a pool of blood. At that time, the celestial physique will still be mine. The fat rabbit wanted to let out a fierce roar, but what came out was only a painful wail. He was going to die. This time, it was really going to die. She-devil, why aren't you here yet? If you still don't come, Little Master will die, and the fat rabbit will really become stir-fried rabbit meat. It was as if it was confirming the fat rabbit's call. Just as the pain was getting deeper and deeper, the fat rabbit felt that it could no longer hold on. Chapter 772. A loud noise came from outside the door. Then, the hurricane swept through every corner of the dilapidated temple with the sonorous sound of the zither. The instant the Cloud Light sect disciples heard the Guqin music, they all felt the blood in their bodies churn, and they broke out in cold sweat. Some of the weaker ones even had blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. Even Wu Chishan was forced to take a few steps back under the attack of the strong wind. Muyan walks into the dilapidated temple step by step, her clothes fluttering despite the lack of wind. The dim light from outside shone in, gently enveloping the girl's figure. Her snow-white skin was sparkling and translucent, and her beautiful peach blossom eyes were sparkling. The girl who walked in slowly was so beautiful that she didn't look like a real person in the mortal world. She had a transcendent beauty and serenity. But the murderous intent in her eyes seemed to freeze at this moment. The moment the Cloud Light sect disciples met her eyes, they could not help but shiver. Right at this moment, the nearby cauldron suddenly shook violently again. Because Wu Chishan had been forced to retreat, there was no one controlling the pill fire in the cauldron, and the power of the seal was greatly reduced. Awoo! The fat rabbit cried out and suddenly jumped up, knocking open the top of the half-covered furnace and jumping out. The burnt and mangled body stretches out, and a small, unscathed figure appears in front of Muyan. It was Xiaobao. Mu Yang's pupils suddenly contract. She quickly crouched down and took Xiaobao into her arms. He only heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that his darling wasn't injured and had only fainted. Awoo! The fat rabbit raised its burnt black and bald head and let out a sound as if it was asking for credit. It's me. It's me. It's all because I protected the little master. Female devil, isn't this rabbit powerful? Mu Yang raises her head, her line of sight falling on the fat rabbit. However, he did not worship or praise it as he had expected. Instead, his body suddenly swayed, and a sharp killing intent and intense heartache condensed in his eyes. Mu Yang gently picks up the fat rabbit and feeds it an elixir refined using the cloud birth and sea formation. The fat rabbit moved its mouth and swallowed the pill with great effort. However, the injuries on its body did not show any signs of improvement. His badly mutilated body trembled slightly, even though his beady eyes were filled with pride and arrogance. But everyone knew how much pain it was in at the moment. Mu Yang's nose feels sour, and the rims of her eyes are a little warm. Xiaobao stirred in his bosom, and with a soft snort, he opened his eyes. Enchanting. Seeing Mu Yang close at hand, he happily called out and tightly grabbed the corner of Mu Yang's clothes. When he was unconscious, he was not worried at all. Because he knew that his mother would definitely find him and save him. However, he could not help but feel dejected. In the end, he was still too weak. If he encountered a true powerhouse, he could only rely on his mother to save him from danger. Xiao Bao calls out Enchantress, but for the first time, he doesn't get a response from Mu Yang. He stares blankly. Following Mu Yang's line of sight, he quickly sees the badly mutilated and dying fat rabbit at the side. Bunny! Xiao Bao cried out in alarm and pounced over to pick up the fat rabbit. Mother, what happened to Bunny? Why did the fat rabbit suffer such heavy injuries? A chaotic scene suddenly flashed through Xiao Bao's mind. While unconscious, he was wrapped in the fat rabbit's body. All the attacks landed on the fat rabbit's body, but he was unharmed. Chapter 773. Its big blue eyes seemed to be in a daze as it stared unblinkingly at the fat rabbit. Tears welled up in his eyes and slid down from the corner of his eyes. The little hand stretched out, trembling as it wanted to touch the fat rabbit's body, but it didn't dare to. Bun Bun, you became like this to protect me, to protect me. Xiaobao's body trembled, and tears streamed down his cheeks like spring water. Awoo tilde the fat rabbit's voice became weak. He raised his green beady eyes and glanced at Xiaobao, his pitch-black, three-petaled mouth opening. It was as if it was saying, "Little master, don't cry, this rabbit likes little master the most." Mu Yang's heart aches as she pulls Xiaobao into her arms. Xiaobao finally couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into tears. He grabbed Mu Yang's clothes tightly and sobbed, "Enchantress, Xiaobao doesn't want Bunny to die. Can you save Bunny? It's all Little Treasure's fault. It's all Little Treasure's fault for not obediently running out, causing the fat rabbit to be injured. Mother, will the fat rabbit die? Don't let it die, okay?" Muyan can't help but burst into tears. She gently wipes away Xiaobao's tears. Clenching her teeth, she slowly makes a decision in her heart. "Xiaobao, be good, don't cry, Enchantress will definitely save the fat rabbit. The fat rabbit won't die." In fact, with Muyan's current cultivation and skills as a shun musician, she simply can't save the fat rabbit. She didn't know what kind of beast the fat rabbit was, or even whether it was a sacred beast or a divine beast. However, she knows that most of the herbs in the Yenwu continent are useless to the fat rabbit. Even if she used the cloud-born sea not to refine the pill, it could at most let the fat rabbit replenish a little energy and eat it as a snack. When it's really seriously injured, Mu Yang discovers that even the shun musician's skills can't make the fat rabbit recover. Hearing Mu Yang's promise, Xiao Bao suddenly raises his head and looks at Mu Yang anxiously. "Enchantress, is what you said true? Will the fat rabbit really not die?" The fat rabbit also lifts its head, Mung Bin-like eyes staring unblinkingly at Muyan. "Awoo. This rabbit is living happily, and this rabbit doesn't want to die. Female devil, you have a way, hurry up and save this rabbit. At most, this rabbit will never call you a she-devil ever again. Mu Yang gently pinched Xiao Bao's face and said with a smile, when has Nyang Qin ever lied to you, your Jun Muyan? Ha, a mere mortal has such a big tone. Do you think that a living being burned by the raging flame fire crystal can be saved? What's more, this Yenwu continent doesn't even have spiritual power. Before Mu Yang could finish speaking, she was already interrupted by Wu Qishan. He stared at Mu Yang sinisterly and said coldly, I'm warning you, if you know what's good for you, immediately hand over the immortal spirit body. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Mu Yang frowned slightly. This Wu Qishan's cultivation was very high. Currently, Mu Yang is still not very clear about the cultivation system of the Xiuzhen continent, and also does not have a clear understanding of her own cultivation level. However, she could sense that Wu Qishan's spirit cultivation level was higher than hers. But a high cultivation doesn't mean that Mu Yang can't defeat him. In fact, Mu Yan doesn't care about any of the people in this dilapidated temple. When she came in just now, if she had discovered that her baby was already dead, she would have died. She would definitely go on a killing spree and slaughter all these scum. But now, she can't. The fat rabbit's vitality is weakening little by little. Chapter 774. Miss. Let me deal with these people. A cold voice with the quality of a teenager came from outside the door. Ying Mai hurriedly enters the ruined temple and stands in front of Mu Yan. There was no expression on her delicate face. She looked at Wu Qishan and the others with eyes filled with coldness and disregard, as if she was looking at ants. Mu Yan raises her head to look at Ying Mai's somewhat frail back. Nothing will happen to you if you take action in the Yenwu continent. Ying Mai turned around and smiled. Her smile was clear and cold, just like her, but it contained extreme pride and confidence. Isn't it just killing a few people and summoning a heavenly lightning? If I can't even withstand a few lightning strikes of heaven's punishment, what qualifications do I have to be his lordship's trusted subordinate? What qualifications do I have for Jun Shong to assign me to protect you, miss? She turned around and looked at Wu Qishan and the others. He clearly did not circulate any spiritual power or profound qi in his body, nor did he deliberately release any pressure. But Wu Qishan felt an instinctive fear from the bottom of his heart, and cold sweat slowly flowed down his back. You, who exactly are you? Ying Mai pointed her sword forward, her killing intent soaring. I'm here to take your life. In the blink of an eye, Ying Mai had already started a massacre in the dilapidated temple. Mu Yan no longer hesitates and takes out the Tian Mo Qin, sitting cross-legged on the ground. The sound of the zither rang out slowly, and a shapeless white light enveloped the mangled fat rabbit. The sound of the zither abruptly stops, but Mu Yang's consciousness sinks into the space, softly calling out a name, Qi Huang, come out, I have something to ask you. Not too far away, a silhouette flashes, and a beautiful youth appears in front of Mu Yan. His face carried a bit of arrogance and haughtiness, as well as a bit of a careless ruffian. Those eyes carry a bit of probing and profound meaning as they look at Mu Yan. You want to ask me, how can I save that little mythological beast, who? Hua! Mu Yang's entire body trembled as she exclaimed in disbelief, the fat rabbit is actually an ancient divine beast Hua? In the ancient books of Yenwu continent, there are also records of some ancient mythological beasts. For example, dragon, phoenix, Qilin, Qiongqi, Dao Tai, but there were very few people who knew about Kai, and there were also very few people who had seen his true face. Because legend has it that as long as it appears, it will bring darkness and disaster. The reincarnation of 10,000 worlds, the birth of Hu, also signified the beginning of chaotic times. Qi Huang smiled faintly and said, yes, this fat rabbit is Bai. There are two sides to the Tao, good and evil. The good are gods, and the evil are demons. However, Denglong has a natural affinity for darkness, so since the beginning of the world, Denglong has never become a god, only a fiend. It will become a fiendish Kai that can devour and corrode all living beings. It will bring disaster to the world. Are you done with the science? Mu Yang impatiently interrupts it. I don't care if it's good or bad, I just want to know how to save the fat rabbit. Qi Huang stares blankly. He didn't expect that Mu Yan would have such a reaction. He paused for a moment before continuing. Because adult Swanni have the innate ability to devour and corrode everything, they can't truly accept the world's vital energy, whether it's profound energy, spiritual energy, or divine energy. This is also the reason why, once it is seriously injured, even you, a Shun musician, cannot save it. Mu Yan anxiously says, so, there's no way to save him? Not even the high-level skills of a Shun musician? Chapter 775. What way? Qi Huang's eyes flash with brilliant colors, his expression seems to carry a bit of evil charm and treachery as he slowly says, let your son and you form a life and death blood contract. Mu Yan stares blankly, life and death blood contract? Isn't it just a spiritual pet contract? If this can save the fat rabbit. You're wrong. Qi Huang sneers, as if mocking her naivety. Forming a contract with you is tantamount to tying one's fate to the darkness. Moreover, a life and death blood contract can never be lifted. Once that day comes and you turns into a fiend, your son will also degenerate into a devil, forever unable to stand under the light. Do you still think it doesn't matter? Mu Yan's brows slowly wrinkle. The corner of Qi Huang's mouth hooks up into a sneer. He clearly knows what kind of choice Mu Yan will make. Compared to a spiritual pet that has been raised for 1 or 2 years, her own son is the most important. She will never choose to let Xiao Bao and you sign a life and death blood contract. Alright, tell me, how can I make Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit sign a blood contract? The girl's cold but resolute voice interrupts Qi Huang's thoughts. He jerks his head up and looks at Mu Yan in shock. What did you say? Didn't you understand what I just said? Once you turns into a fiend, even your son will be consigned to eternal damnation. Then, wouldn't it be fine if the fat rabbit doesn't turn into a fiend? Mu Yan doesn't care, and resolutely says, as long as the fat rabbit doesn't turn into a fiend, Xiao Bao naturally won't fall into the darkness. Qi Huang's expression is momentarily shaken. You forgot that I said that you's nature is close to darkness and decay, and there has never been a you that transformed into a good god. Then our fat rabbit will be the first. Mu Yan carelessly sneers, if it can't think things through and turns into a fiend, I'll make it into stir-fried rabbit meat. In any case, I raised it in the beginning to be a reserve rations. But now, she wants to save it. It was the fat rabbit who risked its life to save Xiao Bao, giving her hope to live. No matter how difficult and dangerous the road ahead is, she will never abandon the fat rabbit and let it die alone because of a future that didn't happen. Qi Huang gritted his teeth and said, even if you agree, will your son also agree? Nonsense. Mu Yan sneers, her figure slowly fading away. Do you think I don't understand my son? You just need to tell me how to let little Bao and the fat rabbit form a life and death blood contract is enough. Qi Huang's hands were tightly clenched into fists. The expression on his face was sometimes twisted, sometimes shocked, sometimes sad, and sometimes desperate and ferocious. Humans were the cruelest, most selfish, greedy, and cunning creatures. He did not believe that anyone would give up their own safety and bright future for an animal. Qi Huang's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the space outside. Mu Yang tells Xiao Bao about Qi Huang's method to save the fat rabbit without reservation. Xiao Bao's big watery eyes suddenly lit up like stars. Mother, I want to form a blood contract with Bunny. I want to save Bunny. What rabbit would turn into an evil spirit? What rabbit would destroy the world? Little Treasure didn't really understand. However, he knew that it was Bunny who had been accompanying and protecting him for the past year. This time, Bunny had even used her own life to save his. He would not let Buntu die no matter what. Chapter 776. Nyang Qin said that the fat rabbit might become very, very bad in the future, and he would also become bad. What does that matter? As long as he keeps watching over the fat rabbit and teaches it, letting it always be a good rabbit, and not a bad rabbit, wouldn't it be fine? Enchantress has long said that the rabbit is his spiritual pet, and also his responsibility. He is responsible for teaching the rabbits every word and deed. Xiao Bao clenches his fist, gently stroking the fat rabbit's still intact fur. Rabbit, don't worry, I won't let you die, and I won't let you become a bad rabbit. Awu tilde tilde the fat rabbit raises its head and cries, its voice weak. You're the bad rabbit, your whole family are bad rabbits. This rabbit obviously gets rid of the tyrant, and takes pleasure in helping others, don't be too kind. Bah! What rabbit? He's a mythological beast. Mythological beast. Mythological beast. Qi Huang closes his eyes and slowly exhales. The turbulent emotions in his eyes are like a hurricane, and he restrains them little by little. Then, Mu Yang hears the youngster's slightly hoarse voice. Nyangqin said that the fat rabbit might become very, very bad in the future, and he will also become bad. What does that matter? As long as he keeps watching over the fat rabbit, teaching it, and letting it always be a good rabbit, and not a bad rabbit, wouldn't it be fine? Nyangqin has long said that the rabbit is his spiritual pet, and also his responsibility. He has to be responsible for teaching the rabbits every word and deed. Xiao Bao clenches his fist, gently stroking the fat rabbit's still intact fur. Rabbit, don't worry, I won't let you die, and I won't let you become a bad rabbit. Awu tilde tilde the fat rabbit raises its head and cries, its voice weak. You're the bad rabbit, your whole family are bad rabbits. This rabbit obviously gets rid of the tyrant, and takes pleasure in helping others, don't be too kind. Bah! What rabbit? He's a mythological beast. Mythological beast. Mythological beast. Qi Huang closes his eyes and slowly exhales. The turbulent emotions in his eyes are like a hurricane, and he restrains them little by little. Then, Mu Yang hears the youngster's slightly hoarse voice. With your current cultivation and Shun musician rank, it won't be easy to guide a human to form a blood contract with a Shun. It's very likely that before the blood contract is completed, you will run out of spiritual energy and die. In the space, the young man's eyes were gloomy as he looked at her coldly. Have you really thought it through? You're going to take such a risk for a beast that could kill your son. Zheng, the sound of the zither rang out, and the sound lingered in the air. Qi Huang's white jade-like cheeks instantly blushed like a peach. Bastard, what are you doing? The youngster's originally gloomy and deep temperament is suddenly dispelled by a flustered and exasperated rage. The expression on his handsome face is both angry and embarrassed. You, didn't Ben Jun tell you that when your soul comes out, you're not allowed to touch the Tianmo Qin? This woman actually dared to touch his body over and over again. Shameless. Simply too shameless. Muyan squints at him, her expression languid and impatient. Who told you to chatter on and on about not playing? I'll say it again. I don't want to hear any consequences now. I just want to know how to save the fat rabbit. Qi Huang fiercely glares at her. The youngster's slightly upturned eyes are still tinged with redness, and the color of his lips becomes even sweeter. Red lips and white teeth, a feast for the eyes. Chapter 777. Jun Muyan, do you really think you can succeed? Muyan raises her eyebrows, the ripples in her peach blossom eyes seem to reflect the sea of stars. Whether I can succeed or not, how would I know if I don't try? Muyan sits cross-legged in the space, the fat rabbit and Xiao Bao are in front of her. Qi Huang stands behind her. A fair and slender hand slowly stretches out, pressing on Muyan's back. Muyan's current cultivation is too low. If she wants to stimulate the domain and build the most realistic Great Illusionary Land, she can only rely on Qi Huang to forcefully stimulate the potential within her body. Qi Huang's hand presses on the girl's back. The power within his body is about to be stimulated. But at that moment, he hesitates, a trace of hesitation and reluctance appearing between his brows. With Jun Muyan's current strength, she hasn't even reached the state of fasting. Forcefully stimulating the domain, whether it's successful or not, she could be seriously injured and die. He doesn't want anyone to become his master. He loathes all selfish, greedy, and hypocritical humans. But does he really want the girl in front of him to die? Qi Huang suddenly closes his eyes, and when he opens them again, they're already cold and cruel. Whether she lives or dies, this road is something that this woman has chosen herself. The power within his body suddenly rushes out from his palm, pouring into Muyan's body. Muyan only feels that a terrible energy is surging into her body like a flood. Half of it is bone-chilling, the other half is blazing like fire. And she's caught between the ice and fire, her internal organs feeling like they're being stirred up into a ball. The severe pain makes her forehead ooze fine beads of sweat, and her body can't help but tremble. Nyang Qin. Xiao Bao looks at her nervously, his watery blue eyes full of fear and worry. Muyan pulls up the corner of her mouth and shows him a weak smile. Her fingers press the strings, and she gently plays. As the melodious sound of the zither reverberates in the space, Qi Huang's complexion changes. A blush appears on his snow-jade cheeks. He looks at Muyan with a complicated expression, and his figure flashes, disappearing from where he stood. With the integration of Qi Huang's spirit, the sound of the Tianmo Qin becomes louder and louder. An invisible barrier envelops Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit. Xiao Bao tries to open his eyes to look at Muyan, but he feels that his eyelids are getting heavier and heavier, and his mind is getting lighter and lighter. Mother! Bunny! He called out softly, and finally closed his eyes and fell asleep. Because of the pain in its body, the fat rabbit had been trembling slightly. At this time, under the comfort of the zither, it gradually fell asleep. In the dream, it smacked its lips and seemed to be very happy. Mu Yang looks at the man and beast who have fallen asleep, and her eyes reveal a gentle smile. Then, a wisp of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her snow-white skin became as clear as ice crystals. But she doesn't care at all, just playing the Tianmo Qin over and over again. She wanted to construct her domain. She wanted to save Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit. She would definitely live on and watch Xiao Bao grow up. And, to fulfill the agreement with Di Mingju in the Xiozhen continent. Xiozhen continent, polar domain. My lord, this is the situation inside and outside of the polar domain in recent months. As for those who disobeyed orders, I'll leave it to Lord to decide how to deal with them. Old Ji kneels on the ground and respectfully hands over the jade slip containing the information to Di Mingju. Han Yi takes it and brings it before Di Mingju. Chapter 778. Old Ji's expression stiffens. According to the polar domain's rules, those who rebel will be killed, those who disobey orders will be killed, and those who collude with foreign invaders to harm the polar domain will be killed. But, those people are that, subordinates. If we kill them at will, I'm afraid that the other elders of the polar domain will be bitterly disappointed. Di Mingju narrows his eyes, looking at him indifferently. Ben Jun needs you to teach me how to do things. This subordinate doesn't dare. This subordinate doesn't dare. Old Ji shakes his head again and again, wanting to say something else. Di Mingju has already stood up, impatiently saying, if there's nothing else to report, then everyone withdraw. In the following days, Ben Jun will still go into seclusion. If there's nothing urgent, no one is allowed to disturb me, understood? Old Ji's eyes widen in surprise, urgently saying, Jun Shong, you're going into seclusion again? He frowns slightly, his face full of disapproval. This subordinate heard that during Jun Shong's seclusion, in fact, actually went to the lower realm. I also heard that Jun Shong wants to take a woman from the lower realm as a concubine. It naturally doesn't matter how many women Jun Shong wants to take as concubines. But now that the Empress position of Polar Domain is vacant, if those shady women are taken in so early, I'm afraid that in the future, the real mistress of Polar Domain will have. Before Old Ji could finish his words, he feels the air pressure around him freezing. He quivers and shivers, looking up at God with eyes as cold as Azura's. His voice gets stuck in his throat in a split second. Old Ji's lips tremble, unable to say a single word. Old Ji, I think you've been living too comfortably in Polar Domain these days, to the point that you've become senile, right? Old Chang carelessly taunts, who the mistress of Polar Domain is, which woman Jun Shong wants to take as a empress concubine, this is Jun Shong's own business. When did it become your turn to care? Or do you think that your position is already so high that you can decide who the future mistress of Polar Domain is for Jun Shong? This subordinate doesn't dare. Old Ji is so scared that he falls to his knees, his voice trembling. This subordinate doesn't have the intention to disobey. Di Mingju asks Di Mingju to understand. Di Mingju's expression is cold and indifferent. Just as he is about to speak, his pupils suddenly contract and he clutches his chest. Jun Shong. Han Yi stands at his side. Seeing the change in his complexion, he promptly asks nervously, Jun Shong, what's wrong? Is it a relapse? Di Mingju shakes his head, panic and fear flitting through his eyes. Something happened to Mu Yang and Xiao Bao. He did not know where this feeling came from. However, it lingered in his heart and he couldn't get rid of it. He must see Yang Yang and Xiao Bao right away. My lord. An attendant walked in from outside, bowed, and said, Fairy Qingwan requests an audience. She is currently outside the door. I wonder if Lord wishes to let her in. Di Mingju hasn't spoken yet, but old Ji is already agitatedly saying, Jun Shong, Qingwan Xianzi heard that you're ill. A few days ago, she prepared Tianyi Men's unique secret medicine and requested to see you. It's just that you were in seclusion, that's why she specially came here today. It's certainly to deliver the elixir to you. Qingwan Xianzi's feelings towards Jun Shong is really. No. A cold and heartless voice interrupted old Ji's chatter. Di Mingju doesn't even look at the attendant and old Ji, he turns around and leaves. He must return to the Yanwu continent immediately. Chapter 779. Di Mingju has a premonition that if he's a step late, he'll inevitably regret it for the rest of his life. Old Ji looks at Di Mingju's rapidly departing back, dumbfounded. Han Yi is also somewhat dumbfounded. Why does His Majesty look so anxious? There was even a hint of panic in his voice. Just then, a muffled clap of thunder came from the distant horizon. Han Yi stares blankly, looking in the direction of the thunder. However, the sky of the Shoshen continent was blue without a single cloud. In other words, the thunder came from the lower realm. But even the Shoshen continent heard it. Someone is being punished by the heavenly thunder. Elder Chang mumbled as he listened to the thunder. And the heavenly thunder is extremely powerful. Who could trigger such a powerful heavenly lightning? Han Yi suddenly widens his eyes. The image of Jun Shong's panicked back flashes through his mind. There is only one possibility for Jun Shong to be flustered and confused. That meant, something had happened to Miss June. And Ying Mai was accompanying Miss June. Ying Mai worships and is loyal to Miss Jun from the bottom of his soul. For Miss Jun, she was willing to do anything. Then, what if she kills people in Yanwu continent, kills a lot of people? Was the lightning punishment for her? Han Yi doesn't even think about it as he turns around and chases after Di Mingju as fast as lightning. Ying Mai, Miss Jun, little master. Nothing must happen to you. Di Mingju and Han Yi leave, and the main hall quiets down. Elder Ji furrowed his brows tightly, his expression extremely ugly. Even if Lord has been bewitched by those shady foxy women in the lower realm, you can't treat Fairy Qingwan so coldly. She is the future mistress of the Polar Domain, and also the future sect leader of the Tianyi Men. No matter what, Lord should give her some face. Elder Chang looked over coldly and sneered, the future mistress of the Polar Realm? Who told you that Lung Qingwan is the future mistress of the Polar Domain? Without waiting for Elder Ji's response, he flicked his sleeves and left. Old Man Ji was furious. He stomped his feet and left the hall. Outside the palace, Lung Qingwan, who was dressed in white, stood outside the door like a cold and arrogant fairy. She had an ethereal and otherworldly charm. The more Elder Ji looked, the more satisfied he was. He stroked his beard and nodded repeatedly. Only someone like Fairy Qingwan, with her background, cultivation level, and elegance, was worthy of the monarch and worthy of the position of Polar Domain's mistress. Those lowly mortal women who only know how to charm his lord, how can they be mentioned in the same breath as the sect master of Tianyi men? Lung Qingwan will inevitably become the only divine empress by the emperor's side. Thinking of this, Elder Ji put on a respectful and flattering smile and stepped forward. Thank you for waiting, fairy. It's just that Emperor Monarch's injuries haven't fully recovered yet, so he still needs to cultivate in seclusion. However, the Celestial Emperor has already sensed Fairy's kind intentions, so he specially ordered me to come and thank you. Hearing old Ji's words, Lung Qingwan's face flashed with an obvious trace of loneliness and unwillingness. But seeing how old Ji is so attentive to her, presumably, Di Mingju has some feelings for her. Only then did he rein in his emotions and pass the pill over. Old Ji took the pill and was about to leave. Lung Qingwan suddenly opened her mouth and said, Elder Ji, I heard that during this period of time, the emperor often went to the lower realm to gain experience, and he even met a woman in the lower realm. Is this true? Chapter 780. Saying that, he hurriedly runs away. This old man still has things to do, so I won't entertain the fairy, please go ahead. Looking at the back of old Ji's hurried departure, Lung Qingwan's expression is gloomy, and her eyes are cold. She stands in the same place for a long time, then she suddenly brushes her sleeves and soars up, returning to Tianyi men. As soon as she enters Tianyi men, a masked woman comes to greet her. Young master, this subordinate is back. The masked woman raises her head, her pair of eyes looking at Lung Qingwan with excitement. This time in the Xiuzhen continent, this subordinate finally inquires about the Shun musician's successor. Hearing this, Lung Qingwan's pupils suddenly contract. In the space, Qi Huang quietly looks at the pale young girl not far away. He can feel that the vitality in Muyan's body is getting weaker and weaker. Not every cultivator can activate a domain. It requires extremely strong talent and experience, coupled with the inspiration of enlightenment in the line of life and death, to form a unique domain. Some cultivators, even if they break through to the realm of passing tribulation, they still can't explore the edge of the domain. And Muyan, she's just a young girl who has just reached the realm of forging the body and refining the soul. Her age is no more than 20. She hasn't even seen the so-called real world of spiritual power. How can such a young girl who is almost no different from a mortal easily activate the domain? And the consequence of Qi Huang helping her to activate the domain is that she will exhaust all her vitality and die. Muyan will die. This is her own choice, and even if she dies, she deserves it. Thinking like this, Qi Huang doesn't know why, but he feels empty inside. The girl's clear and melodious voice kept echoing in his mind. Who told you to chatter on and on about not having fun? I'll say it again, I don't want to hear any consequences right now, I just want to know how to save the fat rabbit. And the numbing shock of those white and slender fingers lightly stroking the strings. Qi Huang frowns. For a moment, he only feels unspeakably agitated. Just then, a sudden glaring light suddenly bursts out from Muyan's body. Qi Huang's eyes widen and he stares blankly. Then, he sees a circle of light like a full moon appear behind Muyan. Around the ring of light, there were also 9 stars of different colors slowly rotating around the silver ring of light. Then, the silver lines connected. Qi Huang's breathing became slightly erratic as he muttered, 9 stars and moon, black sky flying stars. How is this possible? She can summon the 9 stars and moon. Jun Muyan, who are you? As Qi Huang speaks, Muyan's entire body floats up along with the Tianmo Qin. The power of the 9 stars converges on the silver moon, and the radiance of the silver moon completely belongs to Muyan. The sound of the zither became more and more melodious, like the spring breeze blowing through the trees and the waves of the sea, revealing a whole new world. Following that, waves of pure energy emitted from Mu Yang's body, enveloping the entire space. Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit slept even deeper in their dreams, but the corners of their mouths hooked up in a faint smile. Beneath them, a blood-red circular array formation slowly revealed its veined patterns. However, it wasn't just Little Treasure and the fat rabbit who were affected. Even the grassland and the silver spirit vein in the space seemed to be swaying in joy in the sound of the zither. Chapter 781. Qi Huang spreads out his hands, watching his originally translucent body slowly solidifying. His gaze falls on Mu Yang, his expression becoming more and more complicated. Jun Mu Yang, how much more shock do you want to give me? In the ruined temple, Yingmai callously withdraws her sword. Blood drips from the tip of the sword, and then it becomes spotless. Lying at her feet are the corpses of dozens of Yunguang sect disciples. Among them is also the head of the Yunguang sect, Wu Qishan. Only Jian Feng and Gong Chenxue are not among them. Yingmai turns to look at the corner where Mu Yang was just now. There is no one there, but Yingmai knows that Mu Yang is not missing, but hiding in her portable space. For the people of the Xiuxian continent, a portable space is not a particularly rare thing. But Yingmai can't help but frown. Because even if there is no one in that corner, she feels a powerful energy that makes her feel fear. What is Miss Jun doing? How is she going to save the fat rabbit? Will she be in danger? If something really happens to Miss Jun and the little master, Yingmai can't imagine how furious and sad Jun Shong would be. Boom! A thunderclap comes from the sky. The ruined temple makes a loud noise, the roof collapses, and dust flies. Yingmai suddenly looks up, only to find that at some point, the dark, blood-red thunderclouds have already covered a large part of the sky above her head. She knows that this is the heavenly thunder to punish her for her massacre in the lower realm. But this heavenly thunder seems to be different from before. It contains a power that wants to crush and destroy everything between heaven and earth. As if the rules of the heavens are afraid of something, and can't wait to get rid of it. Boom! Another bolt of lightning falls along with the huge thunder, just striking the corner where Mu Yang is. The light and shadow in the originally empty corner changes, and then the figures of Mu Yang, Xiao Bao, and the fat rabbit appear. As if affected by the heavenly thunder, Mu Yang's body shakes, and the sound of the zither suddenly stops. An abnormal bright red flashes across her pale face. Because the sound of the zither stopped, Xiao Bao's little body trembles, and he once again shows a pained expression. Mu Yang quickly stabilizes her domain, and plays again. Seeing that the lightning in the sky was about to strike down again, Yingmai gritted her teeth, made a prompt decision, and soared into the sky. It's her inability to protect the little master and Miss Jun that put them in danger. It's her who killed someone in the Yanwu continent and attracted the lightning. How could she implicate Miss Jun and let her be injured by the lightning? It's just a mere heavenly punishment lightning tribulation. Did they really think that she, Yingmai, would be afraid? Yingmai's figure soared into the sky, transforming into a dark meteor, fearlessly crashing into the thunderclouds. The long sword slashed horizontally, surging and majestic spiritual energy surged. The blood-colored thunderclouds in the sky were on the verge of collapsing, as if they would disperse at any moment. Sure enough, in this way, all the thunder resounded in the sky, and not a single bolt of lightning fell. In the corner of the dilapidated temple, the red light of the contract rune array under Little Bao and the fat rabbit was getting brighter and brighter. Rays of light condensed on the totem's loyal point, then suddenly shot up, split into two, and shot into the space between Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit's eyebrows. Xiao Bao's body suddenly trembles, and his delicate and cute little face shows a trace of pain. But this kind of pain, under the soothing of Mu Yang's zither, slowly disappears, and he once again returns to the peaceful and serene appearance of an angel. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.